when I think of the internet, it's like there's so many things that the internet changed, and there's so many one-liners of what the internet could be depending on who the person is. And I think that's a feature. To me, that's why the flippening will occur. It's why one day Ethereum will be bigger than Bitcoin.
GM, good morning. Welcome to The Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show that's as electrifying as a sip of Sprite from McDonald's. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton, and the ETH ETF is live in the US. And in the first 90 minutes, or maybe the first 2 hours at this point, it's done 600 million in volume, is on pace for approximately 1 billion in day one. So this week is ETH week. We've got episodes all week to build your investments thesis for ETH so you can confidently explain to your wife or your husband why ETH is one of the largest holdings in your portfolio. Here to guide us today is Milk Road co-owner Kyle Reidhead, who first bought ETH at 150.
Oh, I wish I bought a lot more at that time, but it's going to be back on the show. I feel like it's been a minute. I miss you guys.
It's good to have you back, Kai. It's good to have you back. And I'm sure our listeners are happy as well. Okay, Kai, the ETH ETF went live for trading this morning in the US. What's your reaction to what has happened so far?
Yeah, so far about halfway through the trading day, we're at about 600 million in volume, which is about 20% of what Bitcoin did in its full day, or will be if we continue on that, which interestingly is what the Bloomberg boys had guessed. We get about 20%. In terms of the flows, like I honestly don't really know early on what I think is going to happen here. One, this is super exciting, so I'm super pumped. It's ETH day. That's what I got up and said this morning, or ETH week. I think what happens here is it gets anyone's guess, right? We obviously have a bunch of capital that needs to come out of Grayscale, which is like a 2.5% fee or something ridiculous. And then we'll see what happens if people are interested in ETH, et cetera. The way it worked with Bitcoin was in the first 2 days, ETH was down 8%. And then I think in the first 2 weeks, it bottomed out at around 20%. And then it went up 90% from there over the next couple months. So could the same thing happen with ETH? I don't know. Potentially. Currently, we're down a little bit on the day. It has been just kind of like we were up for a little bit. And then I think I'm just checking right now. Yeah, we're sitting around 3,400. So, down like 0.5%. So, nothing too exciting, nothing too crazy. Markets are a little bit different than what they were back in February or January, whenever it was that the Bitcoin ETF launched. So we'll see. I'm not really like too overthinking it. I'm just kind of chilling. I've got my ETH, as you said, bought it first at 150. I didn't buy a lot of it then, but I bought a few at 150 bucks. But I've just been continuing to buy. And I think we're getting to the stage where we're about to be at the last chance to be buying at good prices, whether it's in the first week of this ETF or it's a few weeks to months, doesn't really matter. But all the things are kind of lining up, both with the ETF and then macro and et cetera. And I think all that's lining up to a very bullish next few months to probably about a year. And so don't really care what happens over the next few days, 2 weeks. It's summer.
Love that perspective. That's the long-term investment perspective that we expect from our head of research at Milk Road Pro. Kai, with the Ethereum ETF going live, many have been asking the question, what is ETH? If Bitcoin is digital gold, then what's ETH? Is there a simple one-liner for ETH like there is for BTC?
You know that meme where there's like the girlfriend and the boyfriend, the husband and wife are like laying in bed together and she's like, oh, he's cheating on me or he's thinking about this girl or whatever. And then he's like trying to do a math equation or something. I feel like oftentimes at night, this is what I'm thinking about. It's like, what is ETH? How do I explain it in one sentence? And I honestly can't. And I think it's interesting. There's a bunch of ways to explain ETH and you'll see a bunch going out. Some of the commercials coming out from some of the ETH ETF providers have come out recently and they're taking different angles, right? And it's because ETH does so many things. And so to try and bring that into like one thing is not so easy. It's kind of like the internet, right? Like in the 90s, how could you come up with a one-liner for the internet? It meant so many things. And even today, it means so many things. And so it depends on who you're talking to on what that one-liner should be. If it's a finance person who works in banks or has worked in any sort of financial service, then maybe it's always on finance, right? 24/7 finance, because that's what ETH provides, right? Right now, finance takes the break on weekends and on, weekday evenings and just shuts down, whether that's stocks or that's sending money or that's accessing your bank accounts. Oftentimes it just closes, right? Whereas Ethereum allows financial services, the same as what we're used to, but 24/7. So like there is one-liner, 3 words, 24/7 finance. There's one way to say it, but that doesn't make sense to like everyone because there's a lot of people around the world that don't have banks and they don't ever invest in stocks. And so like to them, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So then there's also like the decentralized app store, right? This is very easy for people to understand. If you've ever played anything on Apple or on Google Play Store, whether that's using social apps or using banking apps or using anything, games, there's a centralized app store, which is Apple, Google Play, and there's the decentralized one, which is ETH. And so there's a way more for tech people, not finance people, to sort of wrap their heads around what Ethereum is. Again, Ethereum does both of those and it does them really well. So there's an option there. Some of the others, the settlement layer of the internet. This one, again, doesn't make sense to everyone. But if you think about the way the internet was built, is it wasn't built with a settlement layer. It wasn't built with finances in mind. When they built the internet, they didn't realize that we were going to actually use credit cards and put money in a digital format. All of a sudden now that's happening. And so what we've done is taken these old school rails in the like normal financial world, plugged it into the internet, and it works, but it doesn't work that great, right? It's slow. The settle time's not fast. Whereas like everything on the internet is like immediate, right, and cheap. And it's very clunky to add the like physical financial rails to the internet. And so the Ethereum is sort of the settlement layer for the internet, right? It is adding that financial layer that didn't originally exist. So there's that one. Some people get that. Not everyone will get that. The original one was like the world computer. I don't really love that one. That one doesn't make sense to like anyone. I feel like, especially not me, but maybe a lot of nerds will get it because it's basically taking computer resources and distributing across the world. And then there's like ultrasound money. This is more of like what is ETH the asset, not what is Ethereum the blockchain. So if Bitcoin is digital gold and it's what you would call sound money, this is what you would call gold, right? Because it has a very low or no inflation rate. Bitcoin has 21 million. Well, ETH has, a deflationary tokenomic structure. So it's even technically, if you think about it that way, could be better than Bitcoin. And so instead of sound money, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum or ETH is ultrasound money. Now that one's kind of getting memed into existence on the internet, but not everyone loves that one too. So like, you can choose so many different ones. And I think it just depends on who is your target market. And so like Ethereum ETFs, some of them, their target market is like institutions. And so they'll go the 24/7 or, always on finance route, right? But that might not make sense to the Silicon Valley people. And so you might need to say the decentralized app store to those people. So like, I think it's going to be marketed in many different ways. Whereas Bitcoin is kind of like just digital gold. That's it, so it is simple and that's great. But Ethereum's just so many things.
I want to get into in a minute if it's a feature or a bug, that there are so many different one-liners and ways to define Ethereum, as well as some portfolio allocations and price predictions on your end. But first, one of the most common that I've seen across the internet is digital oil. Why didn't you include that in your list?
Also an older one. It does sort of work. Digital oil, the sort of reference there is like for the global economy to work, you need oil basically to do everything, right? Whether you want to produce goods, you want to transport goods, like oil is a part of everything. It's priced into everything that we do in the world, at least currently. That may change over time, but oil really is that. And so ETH, because it's gas, right, to transact on Ethereum, is kind of similar to that. Also, a good way to sort of explain it, I guess, to some people that think of economics and think of the global economy, they might understand it that way. But, most people in the world aren't really thinking about when they buy a cup or they buy a water bottle, like there's oil prices priced into that. So like, I don't know, it works again for some people and not for others. So it's a good one. I don't know. There's so many. I could continue on. We could do 10 more if you want.
No,
Don't make
whoa,
me.
whoa. We like simplicity here. The milkman doesn't need 15 different answers.
Well, that's going to be your next question, as you said, right? Simplicity. Digital gold is what Bitcoin is.
Exactly. And so is that a problem for Ethereum? If Ethereum is going to gain mass adoption from an investment perspective, not from a blockchain usage perspective, but from all these new people that are seeing these incredible ads that are going out by Coinbase and Bitwise, and we want them to go buy Ethereum. Well, they buy Bitcoin because they're like, oh, digital gold, I get that right away.
Yeah.
Is this a problem for Ethereum?
Honestly, maybe in the short term, it's so easy to wrap your head around Bitcoin, right? And most people, myself included, probably you as well, Jay, they came into the space going, okay, I see what Bitcoin is. That makes sense. Ethereum takes longer to wrap your head around. Once you do, you're like, whoa, mind blown. This is way bigger than I thought it was. Even once you understand Bitcoin, you're like, whoa, this is really big. But then once you understand Ethereum or smart contract platforms in general, it doesn't necessarily have to be Ethereum, you're like, whoa, this is not just money. This is like everything, right? So it is nice to have just like a one-liner, especially like any business. You think like one of the things that investors always want you to do is like, what's your elevator pitch? And you need to have that thing figured out. When someone asks me, like what is crypto, or ask what is Bitcoin or what is Ethereum, and it's like, I don't know, my like mom or something, like I like being able to explain that Bitcoin's pretty simple to explain. And then when they want me to explain Ethereum, I'm like, okay, how can I explain this one? Right. So, like, definitely in the short term, it is probably a feature to be so simple, like Bitcoin. Though, like, I question how many people even really understand the intrinsic value of gold, to be honest. Like, that's more of a boomer, old school thing. Most Gen Z, Gens, whatever, don't really understand that anyway. So, like, is it really that great? I think in the long run, the not being simple here and having so many different storylines or sort of like one liners is actually a feature. And it is better because it means there's just so many more things that you can do on it, right? A lot of people understand why stablecoins are important. It's easy to wrap your head around. Well, that exists on Ethereum. A lot of people understand why a decentralized app store makes sense. And so that all happens on Ethereum. A lot of people understand why finances and financial services should be decentralized. Okay, well, that's all on Ethereum. So, like, there's different stories for different people all around the world. And so your total addressable market is so much bigger with Ethereum. Yes, the whole world could hold on to Bitcoin, but like most of the world doesn't really need it. It's not like a burning issue for them, but like a lot of people do really need stablecoins right now, right? And a lot of people do need financial services right now. And so it's like there's just more things that and when gaming comes out and when all these other things come to into fruition, like there's just so much more. And so when I think of the internet, it's like there's so many things that the internet changed, and there's so many one-liners of what the internet could be depending on who the person is. And I think that's a feature. I think that's that to me, that's why the flippening will occur. It's why one day Ethereum will be bigger than Bitcoin. Or if it's not Ethereum, why smart contract platforms in general will be much bigger than what Bitcoin will be. I don't know if this is necessarily Ethereum, but right now it's the obvious leader, but we'll see.
Also, as you said, investing in Ethereum now is similar to investing in the internet back in the 90s when nobody really knew what it was yet. Is that an edge and an opportunity that you see?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the thing here is like we all know what Bitcoin is. And so it's worth 1 point whatever $5 trillion, right? Because once something becomes very easy to wrap your head around and, and it's useful and it's easy to understand and people know about it, then okay, you don't really have the upside anymore or you have less upside. When you have something as revolutionary as Ethereum and yet people still don't really get it, even though it is so massive, it's going to impact everyone, but they don't understand why, like the internet in the 90s, that's the time to be investing. It's like you could invest in the internet and internet companies now, and that's good. But it's not as good as if you invest in Amazon and Google and all of them back in like 1995 or 2000, whenever they launched, right? Obviously, it's way better then because most people didn't understand how much the internet was going to impact the world and impact their everyday lives. The same is true right now in Ethereum, right? And so sometimes when it's hard to explain something, that's actually better if it's actually something that's going to revolutionize the world, which I think Ethereum will.
The other point that's sort of within what you just said is you're talking about investing in Amazon, for example. That's a app that's built on top of the internet. Obviously, picking the apps that are going to achieve mass adoption on chain is very difficult.
Very difficult.
Had you had the opportunity to just invest in the base layer of the internet, that is
So easy, so
it'd be a
obvious.
no-brainer.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you have that opportunity with Ethereum right now, right in front of you.
And that is exactly, which is another narrative for Ethereum, which is, hey, if you think crypto is cool and you think crypto is the next big thing, you can just buy Ethereum because it's all built on there, right?
Mhm.
It is the ETF of crypto. And so for people that even understand farther down the rabbit hole, it's easy to explain why Ethereum is a good investment just because of that. So it's a great
Mhm.
point.
Mhm. Just to touch on the bear case for a second, I always want to make sure we have a balanced view for our listeners here. What is the when we say that the future of on-chain is going to be built on Ethereum, what's the risk that Ethereum isn't? I guess there's two risks. One, that on-chain just doesn't go, or that Ethereum is not the chain that all smart contracts are built upon.
Yeah, I think we're past the point that on chain's not going to be a thing, right? We have sort of product market fit and inflection points that we've already kind of taken off. And so like you can't really put what's it called, the rabbit back in the hat or whatever. Can't really do that anymore with things like stablecoins. Probably what Polymarket has just done. Obviously what Bitcoin has done. So like there's a lot of things I think just like we're not going back. So I don't see that so much as a risk. I do think obviously who's going to be the chain that people use, what apps are going to build on. We don't know that one yet. We don't really know how it's going to work because it's still just so new. And so I would say that's the biggest risk. Although I put a small risk on that. I think there's definitely a risk It's not even a risk. I would say I think there's definitely a lot of room for other smart contract platforms to catch up to Ethereum, something like Solana. We think that's undervalued versus ETH, but I think there's still plenty of room for Ethereum to grow because we've barely even tapped the market yet. So I would say like, yeah, others will come and they'll fight with Ethereum and they'll compete with Ethereum and they'll gain market share in Ethereum. But like the pie is going to grow so much bigger. We're not fighting for a piece of the pie. We're all just growing the pie at the moment. So like risk is, I don't know. I don't hold a ton of risk there.
Great. Yeah. When markets are going well, as they are, at least in the past week, which is great to see,
Sure.
portfolio allocation becomes very difficult. It's tough to know which assets you should be in. How much of your portfolio is in ETH, and how should people be thinking about portfolio allocation with regards to ETH?
Yeah, great question. I think I get this question asked every single day in our pro Discord, on Twitter, etc. Is like, how much should I allocate to? How should I set up my portfolio? And so this brings up a great time for this. But we actually just created a course at Milk Road called the Crypto Investing Masterclass: How to Profit from the Future. And it teaches exactly this because I'll give you my answer in 2 seconds, but that answer is going to change in 3 months from now, in 6 months from now, in 12 months from now. And so if you're an investor and you don't want to be gambling in this space, meaning just guessing, and you want to actually invest, meaning know what you're doing, know what you're investing in, understand how to create your portfolio and manage your portfolio and change it based off cycles, et cetera, then you that's what this course is for that we created. So I actually just recorded this a couple weeks ago. It's like 5 or 6 hours of coursework. It's a full masterclass on how to invest in crypto. And it teaches everything from understanding the cycles of crypto, understanding how to value an asset. Is it overvalued or undervalued? And understanding how to manage your portfolio. And so when you see there's an opportunity here like Ethereum, and you're like, how do I allocate? What is the risk reward here? How should I do this? This course is going to teach you exactly that. So I'll give you the answer of what I'm doing right now. But if you really, really want to understand how to play markets and you want to capitalize on this cycle and the long-term coming cycles, I highly, highly recommend you take this course right now. I think we have a discount for everyone, like 30% or something right now. If you're a pro,
33%.
30,
33%.
33%. If you're a pro member, you get 50% off. So either go and sign up for pro if you're not already and then get the 50% off, or, do whatever you want. But I'm telling you right now that like the question that Jay just asked me, I spent 6 hours basically answering everything about that for the entire crypto space inside this course. So if you really want to capitalize on this market, just go do that and do not wait to take it, because if you wait a few more months, you're going to be late. So I highly recommend you take this now. Plus you get a massive discount. Anyway, let me answer this question for you. The question is, how much of it is in my portfolio? Okay. ETH makes up about 50% of my portfolio currently. It was actually much more when I allocated, which I've been allocating through the sort of bear market of 2022 and 2023. And so it was actually much more, but I allocated heavily to Solana as well. And Sol has obviously done a lot better than basically any other asset. And so that has actually creeped up and is now a big, big portion of my portfolio as well. Regardless, the majors make up more than 80% of my portfolio, probably closer to 90%, maybe 95%. A little different than what the Milk Road Pro portfolio is, and most of that is ETH and Sol, and then the rest are like some smaller plays, some beta plays on Ethereum, some beta plays on Solana. Is basically the two ecosystems that I allocate to.
I just want to talk a little bit about those beta plays. How do you think about investing in Ethereum versus investing in other parts of its ecosystem, whether it be the L2s or whether it be apps built in Ethereum?
Yeah, I've mainly been in ETH and Sol for a while, and I think we're getting to this sort of more risk on phase of the market once we sort of get our next leg up. So I think altcoins will start to have their moment. And so I see more opportunity now in the ETH or Sol beta plays than I did like in the last like year, which is why I've been promoting so much. Like just get ETH, get Sol. It's so much easier to just like manage, especially if you're not in this every day. In terms of like alts, I don't even invest in many because it's hard to build conviction in many. So like I think ETH and Sol are just such good investment opportunities. I really struggle to like let go of any of that, which is why like just a couple percent of my portfolio is in anything other than ETH and Sol. The way I look at it is I go, well, if ETH is going to, let's say, I don't know, 3, 4, 5x, whatever it is, or Sol is going to do that, which applications are going to benefit the most from when that happens? So when ETH goes from a currently $400 billion market cap to a 1 point whatever $5 trillion market cap worth 10 15k, who's going to benefit from that? And I look and I think like, well, Maker, Athena, Lido, like the ones that their revenues revolve around the price of ETH and their TVLs revolve around the price of ETH, they are most likely to do the best, because even if they get no more new users and no more new capital, their revenues 3, 4, 5x, just because the price of ETH 3, 4, 5x is right. And so generally though, if ETH is going to go up 3, 4, 5x, its amount of users and the capital coming in the space is going to also go up massively. And so these are more like your leverage plays where if ETH goes up 3 to 5x, their revenues probably go up more than 3 to 5x, right? Because you have that additional benefit of more users coming in, more capital coming in, et cetera. So that's the way I think about it. And I look for plays that can sort of capitalize on that. So that's mainly what I'm looking for.
Final question, and you just kind of actually already answered this. What's your price target for ETH in this cycle?
Yeah, it's so tough. Like my range is so big. It's like anywhere between 10 and 20K. What I really look at and what I think people should be thinking about rather than what is the top price is like, where does it end up after this cycle, right? Because we know it's going to hit a top point at some point and then it's going to come back. How far is it going to come back? That's what I'm trying to think of. Like, where is it going to range for a while? Like we've been in this like 2 to 3,000, range for like almost a year, 2 years now. That's the number that matters. We hit 5,000 or close to 5,000 last cycle for like a day, right? And then it went down like 50% or whatever pretty damn quickly. So like that 5,000 is actually really irrelevant. No one sold at that, or one person did, and they were very lucky. Revenues of apps that are building on, it doesn't matter that ETH hit 5,000 because they didn't actually gain any benefit from that, because really month over month over month, the revenues came when ETH was more at like 3,000 or 4,000, whatever, right? So like I worry a little bit less about what's the peak, and I kind of think of like after that peak, where do we sort of like level off, And so for me, maybe we peak somewhere around the 10 to 20K if things really get a bit crazy. And then it's this like 8 to 10K is where I think is the more like fair value of ETH in the next 12, 18 months kind of thing.
All those numbers sound pretty good to me, Kai. I like your predictions for sure. Thanks so much for joining us again today. And just one more time, I want to mention the course that has just launched. That is the Crypto Investing Masterclass, an opportunity to profit from the future, all about understanding the flow of the market, picking winners, how much ETH should be in your portfolio, what else should be in your portfolio, how do you build a portfolio for long-term success. And as we said earlier, because you're a loyal listener of the Milk Road Show, you get a massive 33% early bird discount right now. Now, this offer is only good until July 28th. So make sure you hit the link in the show notes and sign up. Or if you want, you could go pro and get a 50% discount off the course. So decide how you want to play it. Kai, thanks so much for joining us again today.
Hey, happy to be here. I hope everyone's celebrating ETH ETF Day.
Let's go. ETH Day it is. Hope you have a wicked awesome day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Milk Road Radio, the easiest path to get smarter about crypto. If you like this episode, share it and hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, then we'll leave a link to Milk Road Pro as well, your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto is risky, so you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and we'll see you in the next one.